So we're holding chapter 107 in Tehilim, the second half. This chapter is about miracles that we sometimes take for granted or we're unaware of them. Sometimes it takes a tremendous accident of sorts to awaken an individual and for him to realize that he just experienced a miracle for which he has to be grateful. A lot of people do not realize that miracles happen all the time. Most of them we're totally unaware of. As the verse says, Ki oseh niflaot gedolot levado. Oseh niflaot levado. Hashem performs miracles on His own, without even telling us. Part of the reason why Tehilim is important to read on a regular basis is to express our thanks to Hashem, to praise Him, for us to be continuously aware of His presence, His Hashgacha Pratit, His divine providence over us. Prayer contains a lot of Tehilim. Our regular prayer does contain a lot of Tehilim because part of our prayer consists of giving thanks to Hashem, praising Hashem, not just asking Hashem for favors. That is what you will find in the prayer book, in the Siddur, a lot of Tehilim. Even though the word Tehilim means psalms, praise, songs to Hashem, it's much more than that. The root of the word tefillah partially has to do with connecting. You know, a lot of people, unfortunately, have this midah, this characteristic of ungratefulness. Partially, it is nature that people don't want to feel indebted, obligated to someone. So they'd rather overlook a favor that was done to them, ignore it altogether. They don't want to feel indebted to someone. They're embarrassed, or they don't want to return the favor one day. Hashem wants us to realize that He provides everything for us. He wants for us to have that dependency in Him. So sometimes He withholds something from us or takes it away to remind us that He is in charge, because He wants that connection. Tefillah creates that connection. It's supposed to create a powerful connection, a powerful bond with Hashem. And it's not being used properly. People do not realize the power that it has. And obviously they don't understand much of what's going on unless they have maybe a good English translation. And Tehilim is very powerful. It's a concentrated amount of, I guess you can say, prayers and praises and thanks to Hashem. It's not just about things that David HaMelech experienced, but many valuable lessons that we can learn from what he went through and what Hashem wants us to know. So if we learn it well, not just read it, if we learn it well, we actually get a good idea of some of what is going on in this world that we would otherwise not be aware of, because we live, work, and just are preoccupied with our daily routine that we don't take the time to analyze. What you will see in chapter 107, especially in the second half, is how much we miss out of Hashem's world by not paying attention. And sometimes it takes an accident, God forbid, an illness, or something to happen for a person to awaken. It's something that shakes him up, that he realizes, wow, I just experienced a miracle. And that could be the message, just to awaken the individual. Not that he necessarily has to experience pain, but it's the shock. It's a certain awareness, a certain realization that can come to us in all kinds of ways. I may have not mentioned it last week, but the segula for this chapter, as the previous ones, is for kadachat, for fevers. For all kinds of fevers, if someone is suffering, the reading of this chapter may help in bringing about some relief for that kadachat, for that fever. So we've covered some of the examples where people go through potential dangers, either journeying at sea or having been in jail, if you recall, traveling through the desert, having been in the hospital, for all which one has to thank Hashem. Once he's come out alive, he's safe and sound, returning from a potentially dangerous trip. He was not necessarily exposed to real danger, but there was always this potential. And he's, Baruch Hashem, doing well. He recovered. He has to thank Hashem. And we do so by saying a special blessing, HaGomel Lechayavim Tovot Shekemalani Kol Tuv. That we thank Hashem for having performed having, I guess, bestowed upon us His kindness, for having been so kind to us. And we use the word chayavim, undeserving. Because Hashem did something for us, even though we may be undeserving. That's what the word chayavim is. However, it does also mean that we're obligated. Obligated for what? We're in a sense obligated for all those other favors that Hashem may have done for us that we did not take notice of. So we owe Hashem so much. He has done so much for us. So here we make a blessing in recognition of that fact that Hashem was so kind to us. Perhaps even though we are undeserving, He's still kind. But we may have been oblivious to the fact that He has performed many, many miracles on our behalf. So this is the time that we take the moment to express our thanks to Hashem, either through that blessing alone, or if it's a big miracle that occurred, through a Seudat Hodaya, through a special meal. And during the time of the temple, there was a sacrifice, a Korban Todah, that was brought for a variety of reasons that one may have experienced potential danger, including a woman that gave birth. That is also a big risk. And if she's Baruch Hashem doing well, and the baby healthy, she has a lot more to think about. So this chapter is not a difficult chapter at all. It's actually very easy to follow. The words are not too difficult. And what's important is to just pay attention to what is He trying to communicate to us. And that is to give thanks to Hashem for everything that He does for us, whether we're aware of it or not. So we're holding verse 23, for those who want to follow Kaf Gimel. Yordei hayam ba'oniyot, oseh melacha b'mayim rabim. So now we're talking about those that journey in the oceans, those that travel far distances, whether they're going fishing or whether they're going on a big trip. People that do this on a regular basis or even once in a while, makes no difference. The sea was always a dangerous place. A father was instructed to teach, if he could, his son how to swim. One of the things that the father needed to do for his son in the old days, amongst other things, not only teach him Torah, not only teach him a profession, but teach him how to swim, because this was of great necessity back then when a lot of the traveling was done over the seas, rivers, no trains, no cars, and there was always this danger of the boat capsizing, people drowning, and this happened a lot. A lot of boats were lost at sea. And besides the fact that they may get lost and not find their ways, and besides the pirates that would attack them, a lot of dangers. So this is what it's talking about here. Yordei hayam ba'oniyot, those that go down to the sea in ships. The reason why it says go down, because you're going down from earth. You're going down from the land. The sea is lower. So that is why it says it in this manner. Those that go down to the seas in ships. Oseh melacha b'mayim rabim, perform tasks in mighty waters. So we're talking about those that do some sort of business in the mighty waters. These are mighty waters. It's a lot more dangerous than the rivers, which are calmer. So you have storms at seas, you have sharks, all kinds of dangers, and you have individuals who would regularly go in their ships, and what would they see? They would experience firsthand something that people would not on a regular basis see. Continuous dangers and perhaps miracles, almost on a daily basis. That is why it says in Kaf Dalet, in the next pasuk, Hema ra'u ma'aseh Adonai. If anybody saw the works of Hashem, it's them. Hema. V'niflotav v'metzulah, and they've seen His wonders in the deep. Now, it's not talking about scuba diving over here, even though you could say that in the Metzulah, in the depth, you can see a lot of wonders of Hashem. But that's not something that is accessible for all. As you know, you cannot last for too long without any oxygen below. And even if you had oxygen, you cannot go as deep as you would want. And the deeper you go, not only is there a problem with the pressure, there's also darkness. So we're not talking about necessarily here the depths to discover what there is to discover down there, even though there's a lot of beautiful fish. It's talking about the dangers of falling into the water, which many have gone through, experienced that, without life jackets. And they may have been miraculously saved because they were able to hold on to a plank of wood, or somebody came to their rescue at the last minute. And this happens every year throughout the world, where people are lost at sea, drown, and some of them get saved. So these individuals are able to see the great miracles that they've experienced firsthand. For example, he goes on to Pasuk Kaf Hey. Vayomer vayamed ruach se'ara v'teromim galav. So the most immediate danger to big ships, even the big ones, are stormy seas. No matter how big the ship is, no matter how strong it is, they can always, fill up with water and capsize. Something can happen to them, as I will explain a little bit later. But Ruach Se'ara, verse 25, he spoke and caused a stormy wind to rise. So pay attention, it says Vayomer, it didn't happen by itself. Hashem makes it happen. Obviously, nature takes its course. There are storms at sea all the time. But here we're talking about something that is directed by Hashem for some reason. All you need to do is look at the story of Yonah. And there you have an example of where the seas were really calm. Hashem all of a sudden made it stormy, then made it calm, stormy, calm. They were able to see, the sailors, that this is something very unusual. They're not used to this, until they realized that it's because of Yonah. And they asked him forgiveness, but he volunteered to be thrown overboard, and that's when the waters calmed down. The Midrash explains they saw from a distance other ships that were in calm waters, and it was only them who were in stormy waters. Mm-hmm. So they were able to see that this is something from Shamayim, from heaven. This was some sort of sign. They couldn't figure it out. And obviously, what did they do when they finally arrived at land safely? They brought sacrifices. They converted. They realized that there is a God in this world. So they immediately did something about it. They didn't just say to themselves, wow, this is amazing. And that's it. That's what a lot of people do. Amazing. Incredible. It's a miracle. Now what? They don't do anything about it. But these individuals who go through the oceans experience all kinds of issues. The simplest one, by the way, is vomiting. If you've ever been in a boat, sometimes you can't keep your balance. It's very rocky. I've been quite a few times, I should say I attempted to be various times on a fishing boat to fish. So sometimes we were successful, of course, in catching fish, but if it would just be a little bit the waves would be too strong, I would have to put my head down. I couldn't take it. So the bigger the boats, of course, the easier it is. But even the big boats, people throw up and have a hard time. So this is minor compared to what could really happen. So that's why he describes here some of the problems they go through in a stormy sea. What happens in a stormy sea? He spoke and caused the stormy wind to rise, and it lifted up the waves. And some of the waves can be very, very tall. Yalu shamayim yirdu tehumot nafsham bera'atit mogag. So what happens to the boat? Yalu shamayim, they rise to the sky. They can rise very, very high. And then they plunge to the depths. They go up and down. But look at the last words. They're interesting words. Nafsham bera'atit mogag. Their soul, their spirit, melts in distress. What does that mean? It means that they can't take it, that they throw up, that they just can't maintain their balance. In other words, it's a very, very painful experience. even if everything is going fine and they're not losing their direction, they're okay as far as the direction of where they're headed, but in the meantime, what they're going through. So, once that stops, they have a lot more to think about, because their life is constantly in danger. Now, depending on the Tehilim you have, you may notice that there's some upside down nun after several of these pesukim. Upside down, it's not exactly upside down, it's twisted. It's not in its regular shape, the letter nun. I'm not sure if you can see it in your Tehilim, but this nun is a separation or a partial interruption, because he's about to make a statement. The statement is, you can see it in Pasuk Kaf Chet, we'll get there soon, in verse 28, that people who go through these dangers, if they call out to Hashem, Hashem will help them. That's what he's going to say. But we are reminded, the rabbis tell us, that even though that's true, that when you call out to Hashem, Hashem may come out and help you, it doesn't always happen. So even though that's what's going to follow, that's what he's going to say happens, don't think it just happens to everyone. So that's a very important point. So there's a difference. Rabbis tell us that it all depends if an individual calls out to Hashem after the Gzar Din or before the Gzar Din, before the decree was issued or after the decree is issued. If the decree is not issued yet, then a person can call out to Hashem and his prayers may make a difference. They may cancel any potential decrees against him and they can annul any accusation against him. But if it's after the Gzar Din, if it's already been issued, the decree has been issued, you can't appeal it so easily. So even though he's going to talk about crying out to Hashem, don't think that that will always help. That's why you have those nun, the letter nun, in between the various verses, telling us that don't assume that there will always be help coming. It all depends how one asks Hashem to help him, and obviously if he has any other merits, and when he asks, is it before the decree or after the decree? So in the ocean, there's a real opportunity to see from time to time the hand of Hashem at work, the Hashgacha. Pasuk Kaf Zayin. Yachogu v'yanu kashikor v'chol chochmatam titbala. So we maybe talk about experienced sailors over here, who have a lot of experience, who have done this many, many times. But what happens in some of these very, very big storms? Verse 27, they reel and stagger like a drunkard, a shikor, because of the movements. But my favorite is the last words. V'chol chochmatam titbala. Their skill, all their skill, their knowledge and experience is of no avail. It doesn't help them at all. No matter how much they know, no matter how much experience they have, all of a sudden they feel helpless. So this is a real desperate situation where people have no help whatsoever. No matter what they do, they're in danger of drowning, regardless of the type of boat they have, regardless of how experienced they are. Which brings to mind the Titanic, which is what I wanted to speak about briefly. For those of you who don't know the history about this very, very large boat that was supposedly built very, very well. It's a luxurious boat. On its maiden voyage, first voyage, from England to the United States, capsized, broke apart. No one knows 100% how it happened. All they know is that it hit an iceberg. Okay, so it could be that the iceberg did severe damage and many of the chambers filled up with water, and when there's too much water, the boat can't handle it, no matter how big the boat is. If you flood it with too much water, it will sink. But it broke apart apparently too, so some claim that perhaps they used cheap steel, or the rivets were not the best. There's different theories. they've already found pieces of it. They were able to, in the last few years, to explore the location where the boat sank, and they were able to bring up pieces, and that's why they were able to somewhat figure out what happened to this very, very strong, supposedly strong, powerfully built, large boat, large ship. Still, but why did it happen? We don't know. A lot of people lost their life. Some survived. But I think, the immediate thing that comes to mind is the arrogance. Like something is unbeatable. Nothing will sink this boat. That's what they were saying. It's unsinkable. Who can say that? So when people are very arrogant, when people think that nothing can happen to them, sometimes things happen to them just because of that, to prove this point. It's a very humbling experience. It's a very sad experience. It's very, very tragic. But when things of that nature happen, we need to learn from it. And that's what he's going to talk about over here. We need to share our story for others to learn from, for others to realize that Hashem is the one that's in charge. A lot of people don't realize that. So here you have a big ship that within a very short time completely disappeared from the surface of the water. So what happens when a person is undergoing this kind of an experience? Is there anything that he can still do? Yes. Kafchet, verse 28. ויצעקו לאדוני בצר להם וממצוקותיהם יוציאם. They cried out to Hashem in their distress, and He brought them out from the calamity, from their calamity, whatever it is, whichever calamity they were in. This has happened. Hashem has proved it many, many times. When people call out, when they cry to Him, even though they were going through some great distress, Hashem came and saved the day. Not only at sea, which has happened as well. There have been stories of dolphins saving human beings. All kinds of incredible stories. That's not just an accident. So of course, Mir Shamayim. So the saving of the individual could happen in all kinds of ways. Vayitzaku Hashem. But they called out to Hashem. Now, why does it say Vayitzaku? Vayitzaku means to cry out, to call out and to cry out to Hashem. Why not just say they pray to Hashem? Obviously, to cry out is a little bit more sincere, is someone who's desperate, but somebody who perhaps believes. Do you know that some people who say they don't believe, they will believe, or they will at least call out to Hashem, who they say does not exist, but at the time of danger, God, please help me, if you're out there. The problem is that after the danger is over, they go back to their old ways, and this is exactly what happened during this Scud missile attack in Israel. If you remember those days, there was a story of a lady that approached a rabbi. Rabbi, I need your help to release a vow, hatarat nedarim. Sometimes, people make a vow, a promise, and that's very serious if you don't keep it. So if you made it by accident, you didn't realize the situation, it was beyond your ability to keep that promise, then it may be possible to have a release, but you can't do it on your own. You have to do it through a rabbi. Yes, how can I help you? What's your vow? Rabbi, as the missiles were raining down on Ramat Gan, I made a vow to Hashem. Hashem, if you really protect me and get me through this, I will start keeping Shabbat. But Rabbi, right now, the danger is over, so please release me of that vow. Could you imagine that? Such a beautiful promise to make. Something which is worthy, something which is right, something which is really an obligation for every Jew to observe the Shabbat, to sanctify it. And she saw the danger. And there was a lot of miracles then. Buildings were collapsing. And almost no one got hurt. And now you want to release yourself from that? But that's exactly what happens. That sometimes, once the danger is over, we forget. But what does happen when a person does cry out to Hashem sincerely? Verse 29. Yakim se'ara lidmama vayacheshu galihem. He transformed the storm into stillness. Dmama means stillness, quiet, tranquility. Vayacheshu galihem. And the waves also became quiet. They calmed down. All of a sudden, just like in the story of Yonah, where this was able to be observed, that somehow it was stormy one moment and it's calmed down, they were able to see that this is the hand of Hashem. So it could happen that when one is in a very big storm and it's very dangerous, call out to Hashem, cry out to Hashem. And this perhaps will help. Verse 30, what happens when the seas do calm down? So those people who were in danger, they rejoiced when they were silenced. In other words, when the waves were silenced. And he led them to their destination. Hashem led them safely to their destination. So they're all happy that the storm is over and they arrived safe and sound. All right, now what? Did they act like the story of the woman that I just told you? Totally forgot about what Hashem did, the miracles that he performed? Or did they do what they were supposed to do? Like with the sailors in the story of Yonah. So here he says, what should be done, verse 31, let them do the right thing. Give thanks to Hashem for his kindness and proclaim his wonders, to the children of man. In other words, to people in public. As we've been saying all along, that is the right thing to do, especially when there was a real miracle. But even if there's a potential danger, we make that blessing a gomer. There's always that potential for a danger. A person travels. Car accidents, you know how many people get killed by car accidents? A lot more than in a plane. So the rabbis instituted that if you drive a certain distance, highways, out of your city, that you may need to make a tfilat derech, depending on where you're going exactly, a special prayer for the road. A prayer. What for? What do I need a prayer? Because it may be dangerous. But I'm a good driver. Yeah, but who says the other one who's traveling behind you, in front of you, is a good driver? We want protection from flat tires. You lose control. Flat tire going at high speed. All kinds of things can happen on the road. We're not talking about wild animals right now. We're not talking about thieves. But that's also a possibility. A lot of things can go wrong. There have been stories of people driving safely, everything fine. All of a sudden a big boulder comes down from the mountain and crushes their car. All kinds of things. We know that this is all mishamayim. Not everybody does, but we know. So we have to thank Hashem and we have to pray. That prayer is called Tfilat HaDerech, the prayer of the road. So that we should be protected from any possibility of something going wrong. Verse 32. How do you express that thanks? V'yiromemuhu b'kehal am u'v'moshav zekenim yahaleluhu. Verse 32. Let them exalt him, in other words Hashem, in the congregation, in public, amongst a lot of people. U'v'moshav zekenim yahaleluhu, and praise him in the assembly of the elders. The rabbis learned from this verse that it should just not be ordinary people, that some of those people attending should be scholars, should be learned men. We want to make this occasion a special occasion. We want to give it some importance. We want people to learn from it. This is not a party. You know, when people make a birthday party, what exactly are you celebrating? You're just one day closer to your death. So what exactly are you celebrating? Do you know? Well, people who really want to celebrate a birthday should be thank Hashem that he gave me another year, that I'm healthy, that he should continue to give me additional years with health. So you have to be focused properly on what exactly it is that you're celebrating. So here, we want a lot of people to hear about the miracle. We want a lot of people to hear about the praise of Hashem, for them to understand that he is the one that's mashgiach. He's the one that oversees everything in the world. And that's something that is lacking even for people who believe that God created the world. Is he really overseeing everything? Is he really aware of everything? Everything? Yes, everything. He cannot interfere as much as we would like, because that would take away our free will. So there's always a little bit of ester, a little bit of concealment. It has to be that way. It can't be too obvious. But from time to time, we do see Hashem reveal himself in one way or another. And in the miracle, it's something very, very special. But don't let it die down. Don't let it be forgotten. Celebrate it. Give thanks to Hashem and do so publicly. And that's what we do during the holidays. We talk about miracles that happened over 3,000 years ago. What for? So we should not forget, that this is part of our history. And the same God that performed these miracles back then does so today too, just that we don't always see it. We don't always have the merit to see every miracle. What have we seen so far? That prayer helps. Prayer is very powerful, and we know that from a lot of the chapters in Tehilim. Important to pray to God. Hashem wants us to feel that we are dependent on Him. We are connecting to Him in this way. No prayer, then there's no connection. But there's more than that. It's not just a connection. The rabbis actually tell us that prayer can be so powerful that it can annul a very bad decree that has been issued against someone. Bad decree. He's going to be in jail for the next 25 years because of what he did. Or, God forbid, terminal cancer. Or, God forbid, he's going to lose all his money. And this has happened to people. All of these examples have happened to people as a result of some decree from above. Not because of their bad mazal. I'm talking about their mazal was okay, but something happened during their life. So the rabbis tell us as follows. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, I'm quoting. Rabbi Yitzchak says, Arba'at devarim, there are 4 things that mekar'im gzar dino shel adam, that will tear apart even a bad decree that was issued. It's already issued. We talked about before that once a decree is issued, it's almost late, but no. Yes, it's late, but there's 4 things that can really tear up that gzar din. Tzedakah, tze'akah, shinui Hashem, v'shinui ma'aseh. Charity, very powerful. Tze'akah, crying out to Hashem, but sincerely with all your heart. Not just regular prayer, something more and beyond, which is where Tehilim comes in. Why do we say Tehilim when people are sick, when people are in trouble? It's more than just ordinary prayer. Shinui Hashem, we change sometimes a person's name, or we add a name, which is more common when a person is very, very sick. That adding the name, which is a form of changing his name, can possibly change his mazal. Sometimes the mazal has become weakened, and we're trying to do whatever we can for him. That is where we have that custom to add a name to somebody who's very, very sick. This could also be, by the way, for someone who has not had any children. He's not just sick and in the hospital, but they want some, perhaps, improvement to their mazal. In consultation with a rabbi, that may be suggested. The name that you were given at birth is not the best name, so perhaps let's add. We don't quickly change it because we don't know if the new name is going to be better than the old name. So to change, we have to be very careful. Only the big Kabbalists would undertake something like that, to change a name completely. But to add a name, sometimes it's possible, unless we know that the name is no good. And that happens. Sometimes parents don't realize what they're doing. They just give some name, and that name is the name of a wicked individual, or of somebody who died when they were very young. You want to give that child 2 names, not just 1 name, after the person who passed away young. So we have a tradition of how to name a child, and to be careful with the names we give. So Shinui Hashem is a possibility sometimes that will cancel a bad decree. And the last one is Shinui Ma'aseh, which is powerful, that changing one's actions, one's deeds. He's doing something wrong. And he says to Hashem, from now on, I will do things differently. I will be honest. I will not be abusive. Whatever it is, stop talking Lashon Hara. I will not talk it. Any gossip about people, any negative speech. Whatever it may be that is really, really not good, not healthy, and sinful. So he says, I'm going to stop doing that. Shinui Ma'aseh. Basically, teshuvah, repenting. All of this, if it's sincere, if it's strong, and obviously if he is consistent with it, this can make a big, big difference. And that is why I always advise people who doctors have given up on them. And even though doctors are not always right, they're not prophets, they use statistics. They're basing themselves on something. But even statistics can lie. There are exceptions. And we, of course, know that there are miracles. So forget the statistics. Rabbi tells us, even if a sword, the guillotine, is about to come down on someone's neck, even at that moment, don't give up hope. Don't desist from asking rachamim, pity from Hashem, mercy, because Hashem is about rachamim. But a person has to really make a neder of sorts. Usually we don't make vows. Vows, you may forget about them and they're serious. Rabbi says, yes, but be'et sarah, if you're drowning, that's the time to make a vow. Hashem, if you get me out of this, you save my life, I promise to do something that is very, very special. Not just something very special. That could be what will save his life from drowning. That could be what will get him out of prison. That could be what will get him out of the hospital, out of his illness. All of these four, they have the ability to tear up a decree that was already issued against someone. All right, so now we're changing a little bit direction. We've been talking about how important it is to thank Hashem for everything that He has done, and realize that there is something called Hashgacha Pratit, and that there is something called divine providence. However, if you pay attention now, from verse 33 until the end of the chapter, he's going to talk about how people go back and forth. Even though it is clear, if you observe the situation, that something unnatural happened. But people are skeptics. They'd rather blame nature. They'd rather blame global warming than say that this is an act of God. And that is why sometimes you see extremes. Extremes meaning something not good, and all of a sudden something good. Extremes, one after another. And you wonder to yourself, where is this happening? Why is this happening? It's supposed to awaken people. So the goal, a lot of times the goal is not necessarily a punishment per se, but to awaken people, to trigger them, to get them to think, which they don't do enough. So that's where we're headed here. Pasuk Lamed Gimel 33. Yasem neharot lemidbar u'motzaei mayim letzimaon. He turns rivers into desert, springs of water into parched land. So in this example, you've had the water, you've had the rivers, and all of a sudden, no rain for a couple of years. Remember California? How many years, not enough rain, and what did that do? It caused a sequía in Spanish, English?
Drought.
A drought, thank you. They were saying drought. Drought. I guess partially there was a drought, and there was not enough rain. All of a sudden, boom, tremendous amount of water. Now, too much water is also not good because it could damage floods and the like, and we've seen that too. But there's no trend anymore. In other words, the drought pretty much did stop. Will it come back? We don't know. What does this do to? So if you ask a scientist, he'll give you a scientific explanation. If you ask a meteorologist, he'll tell you, a little bit about the weather. No one will mention the name of God involved in this. And that's what we're doing here. This chapter is specifically to remind us, forget about everything that you're told. Not that there is no such a thing as nature. Of course there's the laws, but who's in charge of the laws, or who made the laws? And sometimes those laws are broken because people break laws. What laws are the people breaking so that they have to experience a drought? We have a tradition, and we won't go through it right now, but there's a list of natural phenomena, natural disasters that occur as a result of certain actions by human beings. It's a whole list of them. Suffice right now is to say is that the extremes, if this is extreme, all of a sudden a place that was fertile, there was rain. So you can't say, well, this is desert land. No, it's not arid. This is regular place that it gets a certain amount of inches of rain and it doesn't. Why? So verse 33 gives us an example of going from one extreme to another, where it was once abundant water and now it's simaon. It's parched, dry. Look at verse 34. Eretz pri limilecha mira'at yoshveva. So now he gives us a little bit of an explanation of why this happens. Very interesting verse because of one word, the word milecha, which I'm going to explain. So 34 reads Eretz pri, a fruitful land. So things were growing there into a salt marsh because of the wickedness of those who inhabit it. You know how much salt there is in Iran? The center of the country? Tremendous large areas. And you have that in Chile too. You have various locations in the world where there's a lot of salt. And because it's salty, you can't really grow too much there. It's like a desert. But something that is a little bit more familiar to you than these two locations is the Yam HaMelech, is the Dead Sea. Why is it called the Dead Sea? They should call it the Sea of Salt, because nothing grows there, it's all dead. But why call it dead? Just call it salty sea. That place was once upon a time a very fertile land, very fertile place, not just fertile, very, very fertile place. That is why people went to live there. That's where Sodom ve'Amorah was. Yam HaMelech was a very fertile land once upon a time, a long time ago. But what happened? Mira'at yoshveva, because of the wickedness of the inhabitants, Hashem turned it over completely. And read the Torah. What exactly happened when Hashem turned over the place? It became a salty place, full of marshes, full of parched land. Now you may tell me, well, they get a lot of minerals from there today. Well, yeah, of course you can extract all kinds of minerals from that location, but it's dead. And you can go into the water and enjoy yourself too, because it's salty and you float. And they say it's good for the skin. Okay. But it would be much more beautiful and much more productive, a lot better, if that place could be inhabited by people and give fruits. It would be a lot nicer. Otherwise, it looks like the moonscape in a sense. It doesn't look too good. So that's what happens because of Ra'at Yoshveva. The inhabitants were wicked, and Hashem took it to the other extreme. He didn't say, okay, less rain. I'm going to reduce the volume. I'm going to, bring less water so that you suffer a little bit. No. The complete other end, the complete other extreme because of their wickedness. Lamed Hey, however, they did teshuvah perhaps if people prayed to Hashem. Yasem midbar lagamayim ve'eretz siya lemotzei mayim. Then he can even take a place which is very arid, a midbar. He turns a desert into a lake and parched land into springs of water. That can happen too. And in Iraq, I was told by someone in our community that there once was no water. It didn't rain a whole year. That's terrible. It's not that they can just bring water from anywhere. And the Muslims knew that the Jews are able to pray. And when they prayed to their God, their God listens. Somehow they knew that, or the chief knew that. I think not too many knew that, because otherwise they would have treated them a lot nicer. But the head knew about this, and he basically went to the rabbi and says, you better do something about the situation. We know that your prayers make a difference. And the rabbi and the entire community went to the cemetery to pray in the cemetery, where they would be humbled and where they would ask for the merit of those righteous individuals who are buried there, to call out to Hashem to send rain. And he told me that they didn't even make it home. They were already soaked. They didn't even make it back home. Remember, there's no cloud in the sky. It hasn't rained for a whole year. But apparently their prayers made a difference. But it's not just the difference. It was a miracle. You were actually able to see Hashem answering the prayer. What's that? People forget. You have to give thanks for that. Write it down. This happened on this day. So people should remember it. Verse 36. Vayoshev sham re'edim vayechonenu ir moshav. This place that is parched and arid. He settled the hungry there, and they established a city of habitation. Yeah, People didn't have anywhere to go. People were not able to survive where they were. They were hungry, and Hashem provided for them. You know what this reminds me of? The volcano in Guatemala. Not too long ago. It really destroyed a lot of the crop. It forced people to move. Some people just moved because this is an active volcano. Why work so hard and have all your crops destroyed by the ash? Besides the danger of the volcano. I felt bad for these people. They don't have food now. That's all they live from. It's from their own food that they grow. It's hard to figure out why. But we do know that it's not a good sign. That's all we know. It's not a good sign. So sometimes the opposite happens. People call out to Hashem, and even a location which is not so fertile, Hashem provides for them, and that is where you have people coming in and beginning to inhabit the place. And once they begin to inhabit it, verse 37, "Vayizra'u sadot vayti'u charamim vayasu pri tevuah." So you have the exact other extreme, where at one point it was completely empty, like a desert, and not fertile. All of a sudden, now they are able to sow the fields, plant vineyards, which yield fruit and wheat. That's a good sign. If everything is taking place the way it should, if they work their fields and they're able to produce, that's a good sign. There's beracha, there's blessing in what they do. But that is a normal year. What is a real blessing? That's in verse 38. Not just a normal year of a good crop, but vayivarechem, vayirbu me'od uvehemtam lo yamit. He blesses them and they multiply greatly, and he does not decrease their cattle. Cattle sometimes die. Maybe they don't have as much milk. Beracha means that everything is abundant. A blessing is not that the things are normal. That's also good. That's also a good sign. But a blessing means beyond that and above that. Vayirbu me'od. And they multiply greatly. What for? For one to be impressed that this is a beracha, he has to see something not natural. Otherwise he's going to think, okay, we worked hard this year, and Baruch Hashem, we had the regular amount of rain. Imagine, and the Torah tells us that this is what will happen if we have a blessing, that you're able to eat one tomato and be satisfied a whole day. Just one fruit, one vegetable, and be satisfied, be full. That's beracha. That's called a beracha b'me'ayim, in the stomach. So there's a beracha where you have lots. You put a few seeds and you have a lot, a big crop. So that's for sure a blessing. But this is even a better beracha. We wouldn't gain weight. Just eat a little bit and you feel happy, you feel satisfied. That's a very special beracha that we should hopefully one day merit to experience. This is something very, very special. But here we're talking about an extreme, for them to take notice. This is not normal. This is a blessing. You know where this comes from? Not from a lot of water. Not because you worked hard. Not because the weather was great. It's a beracha. What's a beracha? Beracha is a blessing from Hashem. And that is why they multiplied, and that is why nothing happened to their animals. There were no wolf attacks, no bear attacks, no diseases. The animals were not diminished. Verse 39. Vayim'atu vayashochu me'otzer ha'av. So here we go back to the other extreme. They didn't learn the lesson. They didn't pay attention. So sometimes Hashem has to deprive them of all that blessing. So that's what 39 is all about. If they sin, they are diminished and cast down through oppression, misery, and sorrow. Yagon is sorrow. The other extreme, not just a little bit diminished, not just a little bit less, no, the complete opposite. The word vayashochu is an interesting word here. It cast down. But I would prefer to perhaps explain it not just as cast down from where they were above, wealthy, and they had abundance, but vayashochu means they were humbled. They're kneeling, they're on their feet. And this has happened to a lot of people, as I'm going to explain soon. Right now, he is describing a situation that applies to an entire region. And now we're going to see on an individual level. So Hashem sometimes takes a region, or a people, an empire, or an individual, from one extreme to another for them to realize, hey, you're not in control over here, and realize this. So on an individual level, what could happen on an individual level? Verse 40. Shofech buz al nedivim bayat'em b'tohu lo darech. He pours contempt upon distinguished men. Buz is contempt, shame, on people who are distinguished. They were doing well, successful in their career, very wealthy, and all of a sudden, booze, they were caught, perhaps with something that was not right that they did, something criminal. That was booze for them, was tremendous amount of shame. And he causes them to stray, the tohu lo darech, in a pathless wilderness. They don't make the right decisions. They end up going places which is not good for them. They end up moving perhaps to another location and didn't do as well as they did before. It could happen that an individual is being struck from above with all this booze in poor direction that he now has, where he doesn't know what to do with himself or where to go, as a result of some sort of sin, some sort of bad behavior, to teach a lesson. Hashem, in the end, what does he want to do? He doesn't want to punish people. The prophets say it over and over again. Hashem says, I'm not interested in them dying. I'd just rather them come back to me. So sometimes Hashem has to really put more and more pressure and booze, shame on people who were once distinguished or being led astray now, where they were so confident before that they knew exactly what to do, and now they don't know, they're lost. That's from Shamayim. On the other hand, verse 41, Vaysagev evyon le'oni, vayasim katzon mishpachot. Verse 41, he raises the needy from distress and makes their families as numerous as flocks. So here we have the opposite. He took somebody who was poor and he made him prosperous. He raises him. Now, do you think this means winning the lottery? The answer is no. The majority of people who won the lotteries, their life was ruined. How come? I'm going to get to that soon. But don't think that that's what it's talking about here. Vaisaged means Hashem supported him. Hashem brought him up. He raised him. He doesn't just say he gave him lots of money. There's a difference. And, of course, his family was blessed. They multiplied. Verse 42, Yir'u yesharim v'yismachu v'chol avla kavtzat. What happens at the end when people see the realities? The poor becoming rich, the rich becoming poor. So those who are yesharim, the upright, will observe this and rejoice, and the wicked will close their mouth. Kol avla, all those who are wicked and corrupt, they won't have anything to say. On the contrary, they will be ashamed. This has happened over and over again, but people just don't pay attention, they forget. And because they forget, they don't realize that history repeats itself. People make the same mistakes. They think they're going to get away with it. They're going to do everything they want. It eventually catches up with them. So the Yesharim are able to see the hand of Hashem and they have reason to rejoice. We would love to see more of this. And the wicked, when they see this, all of a sudden, they're completely dumbfounded. They have nothing to say. So last verse is, Mi chacham v'yishmor ele v'yitzbonenu chazdei Adonai. Let him who is wise bear this in mind. Keep this in mind all the time. And then the benevolent acts of the Hashem will be understood. He finishes the chapter by reminding us how important it is to pay attention, to analyze. Bear these things in mind. If you're wise, pay attention. Look what has happened to others who did the wrong things. Look at the Hashgacha throughout history. Read the whole history of mankind. If you have the time, take a little bit of that time to analyze. You will see a lot. There's a lot to learn. How Hashem's hand is behind the scenes. What I want to do now in the last couple minutes is just share with you, even though you may have heard it from me already, two stories that illustrate some of what he was saying over here. The first one is with my grandfather, Alav Shalom, who once met up with the rabbi of Ponevezh in South Africa. They met up there. This is a story that goes back 75 years or so, perhaps even more. And the rabbi tells my grandfather, I was just approached by a very wealthy man in South Africa, a Jew, who asked me the following question: Rabbi, I don't understand. Every day I say in the prayer that God can bring someone down from above. He's very, very wealthy, and in a very short time he can bring him down, he can make him tumble down. Rabbi, I don't understand that. You see, I have factories in South Africa, and even if Hashem takes away my factories, I have real estate in Manhattan. And even if that real estate is burnt down, I still have bank accounts in Switzerland. You mean to say that Hashem can take all of that away from me at once? Rabbi says, no, that's not what it means. Hashem can take you away from all that. He doesn't have to take away anything from you. He can take you away from all of that. 2 days later, this man passed away. This is the rabbi telling my grandfather, could you believe this guy saying what he said? Arrogance, complete arrogance and overconfidence, oblivious to the fact that it's so simple. Hashem gave us life and he can take it anytime he wants to. Be very, very careful never to open your mouth to the Satan, as the rabbis tell us. And that's what one of the Rothschilds, very wealthy man, did. He said something he shouldn't have said. He's so wealthy. And one day, he went into a safe. People have a walk-in closet. He had a walk-in safe. And he got locked in. Nobody heard him. Apparently there was a little bit of air somehow coming into the safe. And nobody hears him. And he started writing down on a piece of paper with his own blood. He pricked his finger. He didn't have a pen, so he pricked his finger with his own blood. He wrote a note. This is coming to me. I'm realizing that I'm dying out of hunger. And I once said that I will never die of hunger, because he thought he had so much money. Of hunger I won't die. Something else maybe, but I will never die of hunger. And now he says, I see that I'm dying of hunger. People have to be a little bit more humble. And getting back to the people who won at the lottery. Why is the lottery not a blessing? Lottery is not a blessing. It could be that the person, of course, merited to get all this money, but it is definitely a big test to see how he's going to use it. But people don't realize that this is not necessarily a beracha, because the verse says very clearly, Birkat Hashem hi ta'ashir. It's only the blessing of Hashem that will make a person truly wealthy. V'lo yosif etzev ima. If that wealth does not have any etzev, any pain accompany it, associated with it, then it's a beracha. But imagine making all this money and everybody going after you, everybody complaining to you, everybody wants to have a share. Now you have to put up guards to protect you, and you have a headache and you can't sleep. That's not a beracha. That's a beracha, that's a kira'ala. Your life was a lot calmer, easier, with less troubles, less headaches before, when you didn't have all this money. So people think, oh, if I only had all the money, you have no idea what this money will do to you. So a beracha is when there is no pain associated with it. Don't think therefore that people that made a lot of money, especially if it came to them suddenly, this is a beracha. It's not. It could be something else. Important point that he reminds us towards the end is, be chacham, be wise. Whoever is wise will be able to follow this, pay close attention to it, and of course learn valuable lessons from it as well.